I was playing a Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition game when my DM did something that couldn't have been predicted by literally anybody. The dude literally just shut down Roll20 to play some video game. And that's exactly what we're going to be doing today on Crispy's Tavern. April Fools, everyone. Hey, what? Are you kidding me? Again? It's April Fools. I can't... Seriously? Alright, I got it. Okay. Back to the horror story video. Roll the actual intro. So I DM a game bi-weekly, and for the last year, the party's main enemy has been vampires. So, needless to say, they are quite familiar with how they work and their strengths and weaknesses. The party came last night across the vampire progenitor, and the fight could go either way for the most part. Until the cleric decided to start using fire damage instead of radiant damage against this progenitor. And as the only person who was able to deal radiant damage at the time, not doing so meant that the progenitor was regenerating health. In 3 rounds, he went from 28 hit points to over 80, and the fight quickly went from this could go either way to now the party is completely doomed. I just can't comprehend why they refuse to use radiant damage when they know for a fact it stops a vampire's natural regeneration. Luckily, I had a plan for them in place to become vampires if they died or lost the fight, but I just can't comprehend how it actually got to that point. A pretty mild story, all things considered, but yeah, definitely deeply unfortunate. You're winning the battle, everything is going your way, and then suddenly decide to stop using the thing that's making you win the battle. Well, at least they have cool vampire powers now. A few years ago, I joined the D&D game of a guy I was loosely friends with. He seemed pretty nice, I liked the world he came up with, and then ended up clicking with the other players when we met to hang out for the first time. Everything seemed great. Now, I'm a pretty intuitive person, and I could tell that this guy was interested in me without outright telling me, which I was thankful for at the time, as I didn't want to make things awkward at the table I just joined. So just to make sure that no lines were being blurred between game and reality, I created a character that was almost the complete opposite of me, an older male tiefling who was extremely confident, the ultimate actor, and high-key tired of people's BS. He even had a strong accent. He felt sufficiently divorced from myself, which was fun to play, and I ended up really digging his attitude, backstory, and trajectory. Well, fast forward to game time. Slowly but surely, I noticed NPCs hitting on him. It became a joke at the table that my character is a silver fox and can't turn the charm off. It was actually kind of funny, so I let it slide. It seemed more like a running gag than anything too aggressive, and again, my character was very far from myself in my mind, so nothing felt personal or out of character. A couple weeks into the game, the DM asks if I want to go to dinner with him. I almost said no out of habit. I'm just not really interested in dating right now, but realized that I'm an adult now and 2 people can go to dinner together. It's not like this is high school and a date meant you're suddenly romantic and exclusive, so I told him, yeah, let's grab some food downtown. I was happy to be getting out and enjoying one of my city's really cool restaurants, and I was sort of looking forward to hearing about his life beyond the D&D table. The dinner went fine. I paid separately. We didn't even hug or anything after. I can't stress enough how friendly/casual it seemed. But apparently, friendship was never an option for him. He asked me the next day if the dinner meant something more to me, and I was very honest and straightforward about my lack of interest in anything beyond friendship. Homeboy did not accept that. He started pressuring me into going out with him again because he admitted that he liked me and apparently thought that another dinner would magically make me realize I did indeed like him back. Like, what? I just had to tell him again, nicely but firmly, that I wasn't interested in him like that. He continued to bombard me with texts over the week, and then it was time for D&D night. I was hesitant about going, but figured 1, there were other people at the table that I really enjoyed hanging out with, and knew would stick up for me if anything weird happened, and 2, the DM and I should talk in person anyways to clear up the miscommunication we seemed to be having, despite my very straightforward answers. During the session, the DM played at least 3 young females at different points who all loved to hit on my old man, even getting physical with him by trying to grab onto him and stuff. They/the DM were basically fawning over this silver fox. I personally never described him as a silver fox for the record. I was uncomfortable and maneuvered my way out of it in character. Eventually, however, I had to voice my annoyance out of character that these random girls who had never met my character were suddenly obsessed with him, going so far as to crash a completely separate combat encounter for the guy. The DM expected me to play along, and he got aggressive both in and out of character when I wasn't flirting back to him/the girls. Another week goes by, another onslaught of texts from this guy. I have to put it bluntly. Look, Name, I am not interested in dating you. I will never be interested in dating you, and I need you to respect my decision as well as my time. He responded with even more texts about how I needed to give him a chance and how he wanted this to work because he likes me so much. It got to the point where I literally had to ask him to not text me unless I texted him first. My dad actually told me I need to tell him that. I felt like a prick saying it, but homeboy did not get a clue. He even sent about 4 texts after I told him to not message me, one of which was a threat on my character's safety in the future. I took a note out of my vaguely cranky tieflings book and decided I don't have to deal with this. Needless to say, I dropped the game altogether because he was clearly not able to respect me, nor keep his out-of-character feelings from impacting the table. Did I think that piecing out would fix the problem? Yes, I absolutely did. I thought space and time would get him off my back. Maybe he'd realize how incel-y he had been sounding. Oh boy, I was wrong. The DM continued to text me throughout the rest of the summer. He lost some steam going into the fall, but nevertheless, he persisted and persisted and persisted. I very rarely even responded, but he did not care, and my text history is proof of it. In fact, it's 3 years later, and I still receive random texts from him, like when I graduated or when it's holiday. I don't know the last time I responded. Good news is, I've gotten to play my character with a group of good friends, and the old guy is still kicking. TLDR, Incel DM hits on me through my old character with young girl NPCs and continue to low-key harass me with texts even after I left the game. Both myself and my character are living out our best lives now, but wow, that was a weird experience. Weird experience is certainly one way to sum up that experience. It was more than weird, it was downright insane. I cannot imagine having the stupidity nor the will to persist after 3 years. I mean, seriously, this guy is on year 3 of being rejected, and he is still going. That is just, I mean, that is certainly something. We need, this is not a D&D thing, but we need to normalize friendly friendship lunches. Seriously, guys. Just because 2 people went out to lunch or went out to dinner does not mean that they are dating. Something that this nice guy clearly did not catch on. Simply going out to dinner is not a confession of eternal love. Playing D&D with you is also not a confession of eternal love. And yeah, this is the perfect example of letting out-of-game BS affect your in-game performance. Dungeon Master, quote-unquote Dungeon Master. And I'm glad that this girl found a better group to play with. So I ended up inheriting a table I was playing at as a PC since the DM left for reasons. Honestly, they just ghosted, so who knows why. Anyway, we had one player that was that guy. Always tried to derail the campaign, metagamed, murder Hobo, asking me to do PvP stuff just because they knew it bothered other player characters. They literally just said, I'm gonna do the thing, after the table tried to talk them out of it. I was the odd one out at the table as most of the PCs were friends in real life, so the table put up with Mr. Derail anyway. Point of order is that I was very new to DMing, so the last thing I needed was a player intentionally making things difficult for me. For no reason out of the blue, Mischief Maker decided they want to set fire to the grain house of Friendly Village. For no discernible reason, I can only assume it was to be a dick? I had some NPCs roll perception checks, and thankfully they noticed quickly enough, and they spotted the arson mid-act. The PC was, I think, an Aarakocra, so they had flight speed, but eventually a dozen horse riders were chasing annoying PC out of town, firing arrows at him. I fly higher! Oh, well, it's super windy. Make a strength save. Fail. Oh, your movement speed is reduced for a round. I try to land a tree. Well, then the villagers shoot at you. Roll initiative. Finally, I got a, are you trying to kill my character? To which I got to explain all the heinous crap they had done and how this had drawn the ire of the townsfolk who had seen them as saviors previously. And then that person broke the spine of my player's handbook when I let them roll a new character. I'm not going to go back on my word here. I think enforcing in-game consequences on out-of-game problems is not a good way to solve conflict. But at the same time, there is a very compelling in-universe reason why the townsfolk are upset at the guy. I mean, he's trying to torch and burn their food. That's rude, and it will cause them to shoot at him. So, yeah, reasonable. Though, the true solution is, of course, to talk to the player though I will admit, shooting at them in-game is more fun, but probably doesn't solve problems, hence the Broken Player's Handbook. The OP said prior to this that guy that they have no idea why the previous DM left. Well, I think now they are well aware. This is a tale of how a paladin left our table. D&D 5th edition mechanics, homebrew world. Starring the Dragonborn Paladin, the Goliath Fighter, myself, a half-elf bard, Kenku Rogue, Minotaur Rogue, and Druid Halfling. Minotaur Rogue! Oh my god, that's terrifying. Anyway, the perception for the incident happened quite a long time before the Paladin left the table. We were on the run, having stolen what amounted to the Declaration of Independence, not intentionally mind you. We were doing our best to be the good guys trademark, but our Kenku snatched it up anyway, not knowing what it was. We had quite possibly the hottest of goods on our hands, and we needed to offload it ASAP. We were wanted for our treason, so we cut through the mountains to our destination. Even so, we were beset upon by mercenary troop, beating them back into a retreat. We kept one behind to gather information as news of our treason hadn't yet reached us. After discussing things with this hostage, who willingly told us everything without much prodding, we gave the guy some supplies and pointed him to a town to the south we were fond of. Before he left, however, our paladin took it upon himself to disfigure this man with a breath attack to teach him a lesson. After Burned Man fled into the woods, I contacted my girlfriend, a powerful sorcerer. She lived in the town we pointed the man to and was able to heal the man's injuries. You know, if he should actually arrive. We took issue with the actions taken by the paladin, but didn't tear into it at the time. Our sessions were, and are, short. We wanted to move the main plot along, and this particular paladin spent a lot of time performing solo RPs with the DM while we kicked rocks. Months passed in real life. We sold the declaration, we built ourselves a keep, and within the game, over a full year had transpired. Given that we had now achieved governance of several hundred people, the actions of the paladin mattered a touch more than they had previously. I wanted to ask the player about it, but they refused to elaborate out of character. We have a specific Discord channel for talking in character to hash things out, small interactions or jokes. This was also refused as text that can be misconstrued. Alright. I wanted to see what the motivation was for the action, if any. My own character wasn't a paragon, none of us were, but our paladin was a religious leader, and their oath revolved around protecting and spreading joy to others. It seemed like the player wanted to make a character that was more in line with a traditional paragon, but may have been struggling. The conversation went like this. So, why did you melt the guy's face? Oh, him? He was a bad guy and needed to be taught a lesson. He was like a prisoner of war. We disarmed him, and he was immobile. Well, I needed to make sure he didn't do anything bad again. He wasn't even doing anything bad. We committed treason. Hunting us down was probably the morally correct thing to do. Well, I'm a good person, so if he attacked me, he has to be bad. This effectively went on for 30 minutes of my character attempting to get him to perform the basic task of empathy. It didn't work. Eventually, I let it be and just asked for him to roll the idea around in his head and think about it. Rome wasn't built in a day, and people don't change quickly. Shortly after, we had a big fight, trying and failing to save a village. The BBEG revealed themselves, and we were only saved by a godly boon. So, having our crap thoroughly rocked, my character retreats to their room to spend time with his wife and child after this horrific event. He's interrupted by the paladin, who accuses him of not caring about the lives of the villagers we tried and failed to save. As I had cast a spell trying to put a creature down and failed to do so, this caused it to break free of a panic spell that the paladin had dropped on it and maul a villager. The paladin failed to acknowledge that this same spell had caused the majority of our druid summoned creatures to also go berserk, crippling us in the fight. The paladin also refused to help out in slaying a hydra in the same fight. They equated my bard's failed kill with disfiguring an unarmed prisoner of war? They then told me that the 30 minutes I spent trying to help them see an issue with their actions would be ignored unless I fought them in a 1v1 in our combat arena. At this point, I blew up. The out-of-game frustration combined with either the player or the character's complete and utter lack of awareness got too much for me. I outlined how making a tactical blunder was not remotely similar to harming an unarmed combatant, how their critique paled in comparison to their own failures in the same fight, and how damn stupid it was to put both of us out of commission for a petty squabble in the middle of a demonic invasion. My character then promptly went to bed, and the session ended. The subsequent session was spent with the entirety of the party, with the exception of my character, having therapy time in the combat arena with our paladin. They didn't take sides, which was for the best. They were only trying to get him to drop it, based on the evidence that my character simply wasn't going to show up. The therapy time took up the entirety of that session. After the session wrapped, the player of the paladin informed the GM that they were going to be actively combative towards my character, to which the GM responded, "No." The paladin then left our weekly session. I hope that you had a swell time with the reading. As I had a terrible time throughout the events as they transpired. The paladin's behavior here is the definition of mild frustration. Is it the worst thing we've ever read? No, but I can absolutely understand why it would tick someone off. I mean, yeah, this is annoying. Somebody being hypocritical and generally rude is annoying. It's especially bad when you're trying to build a cohesive group dynamic. Listening to your other party members, not just the characters, but the players too, is really, really important, and it's clear to me that this paladin kinda doesn't really care about what the OP was saying. D&D characters are played by people, and people sometimes make bad calls, but you have to be able to own it and understand where your party are coming from if they call out those calls as bad. Clearly something that this paladin was unable to do. Also, can we celebrate a DM who said no? I keep on saying that it's something DMs need to do. Glad it seems to be catching on. This story takes place back around 2014 to 2015 and takes place in the Lost Mines of Phandelver 5th edition campaign. None of us had played D&D before, but we were all reasonably stereotypical nerdy gamers. We had LAN parties where we'd play League of Legends together at least once a week. So D&D just seemed like the next natural step progression. It being so long ago, I don't remember a lot of the specific details, but I'll try and get the general gist expressed here. Minor spoilers for Lost Mines of Phandelver below. Party consisted of the DM, a barbarian, who we'll refer to as Vapor, a wizard, the DM's wife, and the problem player, a rogue. They were all pre-made characters so that we didn't have to put together character sheets in a manner akin to chimpanzees trying to fit round pegs into square holes. Things started out okay, players started to get into character and follow along with the plot through some casual encounters, nothing particularly difficult. We had skipped any form of Session 0. We don't need it, we thought, although I doubt the players even knew what a Session 0 was. No one knew exactly how to play, including the DM, so a lot of the time was spent checking up rules more so than rolling the actual dice. Rogue, however, discovered something that would almost entirely break everything the DM had set up in the first session. The dreaded sneak attack. We hadn't had a proper battle map made up, so it was all played through the theater of the mind. Because of this, the barbarian was almost always within 5 feet of whatever enemy they were fighting. It's amazing how much an extra d6 can break the campaign. The barbarian and wizard became almost useless in all combat encounters, since as long as the rogue hit, it was pretty much a guaranteed one-shot against everything the DM had set up to fight. This went to the rogue's head quite quickly. Any combat encounter was the barbarian and rogue sprinting in to do mountains of damage, for level 1 at least, while the wizard pretty much just stayed back and kicked rocks. The specific timeline gets a bit fuzzy here, but I'll quickly sum up the next two things that made the party want to play with rogue again. Upon entering a cave that the DM had set up several encounters in, traps and loot along the way, the one from the adventure book, the party ducked into a small offshoot of the cave that was filled with wolves. By this point, the party had basically worked out their combat strategy, so the wolves were absolutely no issue. The rogue, in his infinite wisdom, I'm not sure how they worked this out actually, threw a rope upwards. The rope caught on something and they climbed up, which led them straight to the boss room. They skipped the entire dungeon. The session only lasted about 30 minutes before the DM said he hadn't planned anything else, and everybody went home a little annoyed. This, however, is where the that guy syndrome really began. Next session, party had gone back to some town or castle or something, and for some reason, the DM had given the rogue a ring that would transform their physical appearance into that of another. Barbarian and wizard went off to the pub to rest, but the rogue decided, "I want cash money," and went off to find something to steal. He spots the king's castle and decides to plunder for epic loots, or whatever people said back in 2014. I doubt the DM had anything prepared for this, or if he had just made it up on the spot, but Rogue ended up in a hallway with 6 doors, 3 on either side. He hits each of the doors one by one, and then ends up in a bedchamber. Asleep on the bed was indeed the king of the town that they were in. I want to say right now that the rogue was chaotic good. Again, none of the players really knew how to play D&D properly, but surely people can work out what the word good means. The rogue, for no reason other than, I want money, pulls out his dagger and cuts the king's throat. I doubt he could feel how annoyed the DM was getting until the queen walks in. Rogue quickly puts on the ring and transforms his physical body into the king. The queen, not being an absolute moron, sees the dead, still bleeding body of the king and, calls the guards. Several run into the room, and DM has finally had enough, and with no remorse, kills off the rogue. We wrap up the campaign, the players go home, and they never meet for D&D again. Dear reader, this was unconvertibly a dick move by Rogue, but in one final twist of fate, the Rogue sits silent for a few years before deciding to post this story on Reddit. Yes, That Guy Rogue was yours truly. I didn't play D&D for many years up until about a month ago. I joined a new group and, with more understanding of how this game works, realized after all this time that I was the asshole. I no longer act like this. I am currently playing a rogue, but decided that he is not a thief. He does not steal. He does not kill innocent people. I hope I will never become that guy ever again. What story, what development, what twists! Well done, OP, both on the writing and on the character development of yourself. It's always important to realize your own mistakes, which is truly difficult. A lot of people say, oh, you need to be self-aware and have self-realization, but don't really acknowledge that that kind of thing is just naturally really hard for the vast majority of people. It's hard to admit you're wrong. It's tough, but this rogue managed to do it, and not only that, but managed to find a new game, learn from their mistakes, and hopefully play a great campaign. I absolutely love this, and I am happy for this person, and I'm happy that we see some actual character development in an RPG horror story. It's a pity we don't see it too often, but it is always a pleasant surprise. And that is where we're going to end today's episode of RPG Horror Stories. If you guys did enjoy it, then please do leave a like. If you guys want to see more of my content, then you can head into the cards and find our Q and Play series where I answer your questions in a rambly, unscripted format while playing some video games. And while you're there, subscribe to Crispy's Tavern to get more of our content right as it comes out. And finally, if you want to leave your own stories or thoughts, go down into the comments down below. If you cannot think of a comment, leave the comment self-absorbed to let me know you made it to the end of the video. In essence, like, comment, subscribe. I will see you all next time. Farewell.